everybody taking dog tags. Dog, this is awesome. It's Optimus Prime and your quadrant and talking to you. Got that? I was in a mind when I crafted this. The dungeon master's wrath with a dash of sick. I dash like Sonic Mad, not a pacifist, but pacifist to tracks when I'm rapping, kids. We the last of us. The master race, take him with a master hand. It's cancerous. I hit him with the master sword and sure I make a nice sword. But I wonder how 4 guys make a Triforce.
Hey guys, welcome to the Trinity Force Podcast. You're listening to episode number 134. My name is Adam Ponophobia Cogswell, and as always, I am your host for this evening. Hope you guys are doing fantastic out there in live land. As you can see, the entire group of guys is here this week. Everybody smiles.
Howdy. Hi. I thought we still have, he gives us a good lead, and we still have to be told how to respond.
Well,
We're very professional.
Dom kind of looked up and smiled, like, "Hey, I'm here," and then he's like, "I'm not going to say anything."
Should I talk yet?
You need to zoom at the camera. Sean's gonna turn into the moon.
They've already forgotten.
To be honest,
you were gone for...
I thought about doing the moon thing, but then I was like, Adam's gonna be pissed, and then I didn't do it. But whatever.
What's the moon thing?
Oh God, no, please, we don't have time for that. Can we show you after the podcast?
Yes.
Oh,
On the moon. Hey.
I like the voice change.
well,
I know, man. It's the best.
So yeah, this was a thing that happened all one night. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, Sean turned into the moon, and we sat there all night going,
They were
the
so
moon!
drunk. It was
We were
awful.
so yeah. So I actually have a lot of news to go over this week, but first we need to say hi to Claude, who hasn't been here for a week.
Heidi Claude.
Hello. Howdy. It's good to be back.
Is
What's
it?
up, buddy?
Did you miss us?
Oh, of course I did. Big time.
I love it when you lie to me, baby.
Missed.
I'm not lying. I missed it. I was a little jealous. You had the sexy carrot accent on the show,
Yeah, that's true.
and I missed it.
Yep, you
So,
sure did.
I had to watch it after the fact. And then, of course, you got Josh on here
That's right on
to
Monday.
fill in when Sean wasn't there.
And record.
And I thought he did a good
And
job there,
Record,
too. Yeah, and Record came back.
And Records
So-
Petus made a
And then
debut.
the good news, we are picking
never
up
stop
Oz
being
LOL,
funny.
right?
Yes.
That's part of the news that we're going to get to. Yeah, we've picked up Oz LOL podcast. If you guys don't know who they are, they're an Aussie-based podcast. They take care of the oceanic scene. You guys can find them over at ozlol.trinityforcepodcast.com. And they're going to start posting there every week, and they're going to talk about it. So part of the sponsorship, like we talked about last week, is there'll be merchandise. You'll be able to get their new logo, the Oz LOL logo, on a T-shirt. You'll be able to watch them going live, and they'll have a podcast out every week that you guys can listen to. So that's 3 hours of Trinity Force now you get to listen to it. So it's an officially sponsored Trinity Force product, and that is just one of hopefully many things to come from the Trinity Force here in the next month or so.
So everybody didn't go to the website.
God damn it.
No?
I
Just, fuck. Go on, I need a minute. Oh my God.
You want to be disappointed?
oh,
This is what happens when the guy is gone for a week. He has to come back
Yeah.
swinging.
Pent up.
Striking out.
All right.
Can someone else host this? Because I need 10 minutes.
You got it.
Okay, guys, don't forget to go rate us on iTunes if you guys enjoyed that awesome pun. Please talk about DeClaude's puns as he is carrying the podcast tonight with them.
If you didn't enjoy the pun, leave a comment about that, and we will try to get rid of those going forward.
Yes, thank you, Dob.
Yeah, what? Didn't you
Just
have
the-
a system today? You were going to shock me every time I made a pun or something,
I'm
but
gonna put something onto your chair, like some kind of air horn or something that just blows loud or shocks you every time you make a pun. So, do in an attempt to curb the behavior. So yeah,
that'll work.
We'll see
iTunes
what happens.
reviews. I do want to talk about one other thing here in the news. Every I want to say Sunday through Thursday night, the best yet, who was on Monday's episode talking about ranked fives, he is streaming on the Trinity Force podcast channel at twitch.tv/tforce podcast or stream.trinityforcepodcast.com. He's platinum level jungler, working his way to diamond. He talks a lot about jungle and gets you guys, better equipped to play the game. He talks about how support should help out the jungler, and he just talks through the game and plays it a lot. So after this stream, assuming he's around, he's going to go ahead and stream again. And you can find him from 9 to 2 a.m. or something, 5 days a week.
wow. That's
a rough one,
devotion.
mate. Sorry.
Dom's over there dying as we're
I'm
trying to get
dying.
some news.
Well, it shouldn't have been any windpipe.
Oh.
Please,
Shut up. You're not a doctor. You don't know me. Okay, I'm good. Sorry about that.
Good, good. If it's not your mic, it's your IRL mic.
We're just waiting for every time you talk, we're just gonna stand here like with
I'm not.
bated breath.
All right, you know what?
You know, one of these
How about
days,
this? Don't
one of us-
expect a pun. That way, when I hit you with it, you're surprised.
One of us is gonna like walk out of frame on
Get your
camera
defenses down.
and walk into his frame and stab him.
That
on
would be
screen.
fantastic. It just walks. Can we make that happen? I'm coming down to you, Declawed. We're gonna podcast, but I'm gonna be in a different room, and we're just gonna make it happen.
Walk it back door, slap him across.
Be sure
the
you
head.
announce yourself though before coming into my house. You might get shot.
I'm a bear, and then he'll whip out, throwing it back to this summer. Okay. I was trying to keep the podcast news short because I keep getting yelled at for going way too long, but we've missed a Claude so much that we just have to joke with him, right?
Oh, thank you. Let's go on with the news. Oslol, and you said you weren't going to announce something else, but there's something else in the working.
There's a lot of in the works actually that I can't talk about because it's stuff and things, and we've already said too much.
We don't want to raise too many hopes.
Yeah, this.
No, this is called
Got it.
blue balling.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's move on. So patch 4.2, Declawed, I lied to you today. I thought it hit last night. I guess it's hitting tonight.
Oh, you did? Oh, you got me excited. And people who saw the tweet as well were probably like, oh, sweet. I want to play Xerath when I get home.
Right.
Just as I suspected. It's probably going to hit
How dare
for
you?
the Tuesday.
Oh, thanks, Dom. Yeah, I thought I had read that the patch or the live maintenance was last night. I believe it's tonight or tomorrow, but it's coming out this week. So actually,
Was it false hopes and broken dreams?
Are we doing like the
Like that?
do the fucking game?
Pour one out.
Yeah. I'm not pouring shit out. I'm drinking it. If I'm pouring it out, it's going in my mouth.
Yeah. So, all right. So we no one has a chance to mess with it yet, as far as the live version of it. So we can still speculate a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
speculation
what we
podcast.
do best. That's what
Yep.
we do best.
I agree.
Give you a bunch of information that may or may not be useful when the time actually hits.
But hopefully
Exactly.
it makes you think
And can
about
change
it
at any
while you're
time.
playing the game. You're like, well, Trinity Force said we could steal blue buff at 6 with Xerath, so maybe I should get ready for that. Wow, he thinks I'm walking
You
into
can.
his jungle.
You probably can from your lane with that 1500 range or whatever it is. If you have it pushed up about mid lane or so.
Well,
really
let's talk
think you're
about
gonna steal it at 6?
Yeah.
Wait, we got to talk
Not right
about
at
what
6,
happened.
but when the
Because-
7-minute mark hits.
So Xerath got reworked in patch 4.2. He used to be, we had talked about with Mubi, he used to be that, they want to make him like the siege character that was able to just throw spells at really long range, but it ended up being a guy who mobilizes himself and then what?
Kind of does some damage, but isn't really that useful unless his ult's up.
It was
If you hit
still
with
a
the
case
ultra
where
short range
he.
E,
I mean, it was still a case where he just burst down the closest target. It wasn't. It wasn't about sniping. It was just killing whatever was closest to him.
Right.
Right.
And like, that's token mage fair and everything. But League of Legends has a billion of those types of champs already, and so the long range champs are really few and far between. And that's kind of what they're hoping to fulfill with Xerath this time around.
So looking at that, the only way that I see Xerath becoming, the only way that I see that being fulfilled is if Xerath goes into his ultimate at, level 16, because he could be at, red buff and, wailing on the team that is sitting at Baron, for example. Everything else, the range is still as long, if not a little bit longer than it was, but you're not going to be wailing in the back line, because E, for
Wow.
example, only hits the first target. Once
Right.
it's a rolling ball,
Right.
and once it hits, it stops.
Go shot. And
think the
it's, at
idea-
level 6 is 3200 range. That's still nothing to sneeze at.
I mean, I think
His
the
first
idea
rank result.
now is that you're supposed to have a big wall in front of him, and he's just going to snipe. You're not supposed to be able to dive Xerath, and that really intrigues me in this dive heavy meta that we're in, because if you can't get to the biggest threat of the back line,
Well, here's
your
the
team
thing.
comp's not going to work as well as you want it to.
I think his kit lends itself to a little bit of counterplay there, because you get someone diving in your face, you launch that shocking orb at him. Hopefully you get a little bit of a stun. Then as you're backing off, you hit your W and try to get a little bit of a slow. You're doing damage while you're doing that. Maybe you save yourself some time for someone to peel. And at that point, you can try to blow him up. Maybe not do a full channel on your Q, and then just root yourself and start nuking on top of yourself. That's what I would do.
See that with him though, if somebody is on top of you, if you have flash up, you're probably going to get away. You're right, because you're going to stun them. You can flash away. You can slow, or in the slow. So the guys, those of you who don't know and haven't read the patch notes. I'll just run down how his abilities work real quick. Q, he now charges it up, and the longer he charges it, the longer the range gets on it. And
So like Varus's whatever it is.
yeah, Varus's piercing arrow.
Right. Only he
It's
can,
exactly like that.
Yeah. What's Varus's piercing arrow max range?
Wait a minute. Quick question. I'm sorry. Quick question about it though. What happens if the time expires? It's not like I didn't read anything like Varus's where it refunds half the mana. Does it just launch or not go off? What happens?
I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't
So
say.
it doesn't specify. So that's something to test out as well. But
But he
that's a
can
minor
still
point.
move while he's doing it,
Yeah.
because his movement speed gets reduced 50%. So it's better. It makes him. I like. Okay, so let's just talk about Q for example. I like the old Q because you can fire and forget. I like this Q because it makes it easier to be that long range assassin type. Melee, or I'm sorry, range siege person. Like, I like the fact that you can walk around lane, you're charging it up. It's kind of like Vi in the example, Vi or Varus. And but I like the old Q because you could rapidly fire it with an E. You can EQ and they're stunned and take tons of damage. Now it's if you don't or it still does the same amount of damage. You can still rapid fire it, but you can't get that range. Sorry, I was trying to put more than one thought.
You can't
together
get the
here.
range like when you went into the focus mode.
Right. And I'd still say the range was.
Fire.
I have to go look. I need to actually get on live and play this because I wonder if the range of the Q if you just rapid fire quick Q cast it, if it's still the same length as it was on live.
What do you mean? Like
Right,
the range
if
of it,
it's like-
or
Yeah,
or
like
how
the range.
quickly it
Let's say it's 4 Teemos, but when you hold it, it becomes 8 Teemos.
Okay.
And now
Let's
on
see.
as live is right now, when you fire
No,
it,
it's shorter.
It is shorter.
It was
It's
1025.
On live, it's range of 900.
Is that while in W or
On
is that?
No, if you're in
currently
W,
it's
If you're in
currently
W,
it's
1300.
750 max range Arcana Pulse. I'm looking at it right now.
Are you at?
Because I'm on the League of Legends website where they haven't updated any of the information for Xerath because it's live.
Right.
It says Arcano Pulse, range 1025.
Max
It's just
rank?
has a flat range. It just says
Okay.
range 1025. So
I'm looking on.
I'm assuming that's the minimum range because then when you use Locus of Power, it
all the
extends.
info we
his
have,
range.
all the info we have differs. I was looking at
That's funny.
LOL
The
King.
Wikia? Oh,
No, I was at LOL King.
I'm right at the source, and I don't know
I was
how
I was
accurate
looking at the
League of
wiki and
Legends
it says
website is.
750 to 1400.
So the range.
Wait, but
'cause-
750 to 1400 is the new one.
The new one's 700 to 1400.
Or yeah, 700.
right.
So I think it's slightly shorter, but I think it's pretty much the same.
Shorter if you just fire it off, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you just immediately press it and forget.
but longer range if you let it channel all the way.
It's the same.
Is the
if
same
you
at
let
max?
it channel all the way. Yeah. It's just you don't have to root yourself when you do it.
Right, you
Right.
can move around to do it. I'm glad that they didn't make Q increase damage the longer you hold it, because that would turn him. I would think that would be the difference between Xerath being good and Xerath being awful, really. Because if you're gaining damage while you're holding it down, kind of like how Varus is, that
Right.
it's harder for a mage to do that. Because I think a lot of Varuses, they save their Q to either execute or to quickly pop stacks, for example. And if we're going to compare him, because how the piercing arrow works, there is no stacks, and there is no way for him, to do extra damage. So I like that it doesn't increase damage while it's being held down. So talking about Q, let's move on to W here real fast, because we were talking about when people dive you, or how you can use W to
Right.
your advantage. W is a circle, and the closer you are to the middle of the circle, the higher percentage you're slowed by, up to 80% if you were hit in the middle of the circle.
Is there a delay from when you cast it and when it hits? Is it like Corky's new
Or
phosphorus
Vygar's.
bomb where it kind of like lobs, or
I haven't seen it. I
curious?
assuming that it's electricity, I just kind of feel like it would probably be nearly instant, or have like a half-second delay or something. For with it, there's a cast animation and a cast time, I'm sure. But I like that ability better now because obviously Locus of Power, all it did was root you in place and increase armor. I think. Oh, increase magic penetration. That's what it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because his passive was armor. And then Shocking Orb is just a straight line skill shot that stuns the first person it hits. But the stun is increased in duration if you hit at max range. Max range is 2 seconds, which is a really long stun.
We didn't touch on the passive.
Oh yeah,
the new passive,
which did change. And like I was never much of a Zareth player. He didn't really intrigue me. If I'm gonna play a long range champion, I'll just play Lux because she's ridiculous and hilarious. So why not? But like, did he really have mana issues at least in the early going?
Yes.
Yes.
So was he the type who was totally crippled if he didn't get that first blue buff?
No. You would usually most of them built Rod of Ages on him.
Yep.
First.
I was about to say until you get your catalyst, you hurt for mana for the most part, like really bad.
Yeah, because he didn't do a lot of damage early game. He didn't start doing damage to like level 9 or something, level 8 or 9.
I mean, his Q in comparison to like a Ziggs bomb, like did like I want to say 2/3 of his Ziggs bomb in damage, kind of. At least that's what it felt like.
Right.
But the damage, I mean, at max rank you couldn't clear a wave with your Q unless you had like a needlessly large or something.
Because just look at, like, they did touch his base mana and his base mana regen. Those got like toned down a little bit, but they should be at the same level by the end of the game, or maybe even better because the scaling on both is now better. And with the new passive, which is every 10 seconds, his next basic attack restores a certain amount of mana depending on his level. Like, I wonder if that's actually going to be this, like, really the sneaky thing that ends up helping him more than anything else.
Yeah, I don't like things that are every certain amount of seconds because then you can't really control them. But it's better than nothing.
It reminds me too much of Lissandra's
passive.
passive.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Lissandra.
Oh, yeah, it's the same. They're not, I mean, but let's face Riot is kind of hitting the bottom of the well as far as passives go. I mean, season 2 or whatever, it was like every other champion or something had something that was on auto attack.
Right.
So that's not terribly surprising, but if it helps to address some of his issues, I prefer that to, what the hell is it? Victor's passive, which is that fucking item.
Oh, you mean the trinket item or the?
Yeah, no, it's literally an item.
It's
not
It's the bonus item he can upgrade.
Well, I think a good point with here taking this consideration is right. Live Zareth, as we were talking, it is not 4.2 Zareth. 4.1 Zareth, you had to max W second, so you're giving up a damage spell, right? Because you did Q W E and then of course R, whatever it was up. And W did no damage. W cost no mana, so all your mana was being dumped into Q to do damage, and your E was primarily for a stun and extra damage on a cannon minions. So now that you have to balance somebody around, having that extra spell that does damage and an extra spell that costs mana, you have to give him some way to either regen mana or have higher base mana regen.
Yeah, I can see it working, and I've actually just by reading it and seeing the extra utility he has, do you think grab a spell blade, put him in the bottom lane as support? Think that might work?
No.
Because
I think you're supposed to be
shot.
dealing a lot of, like, if he's not dealing damage, he's pretty much wasted on your team, and like it will take so long for him to get to a point where he's dealing decent damage.
You think so?
Because there are still other priorities than damage items right now. Very, very few supports can get away with that. The
You mean the way Pone plays Annie?
Yeah.
But you still don't build a lot of damage items. You might get a Doran's Ring, and that's the extent of it.
Oh, he does.
I don't build Annie as a generic support, but don't listen to how I play. If you watch the pros play,
It got him to platinum. Do it.
If you watch the way the pros play, though, they at 20 minutes, they probably have a ruby sightstone and some piece of the medallion or ancient coin or whatever, whatever it may be. And then
go
boots.
towards your sightstone, yeah.
Like, you can eventually get the damage. You'll eventually get there, but Zareth specifically, I mean, it's just going to tickle when he shoots spells at opponents, and he doesn't have enough utility going on there to really justify him in that spot. That's my, that's
Right.
my 2 cents on the matter, at least.
Well, I want to see if the damage is enough, and I want to see if the damage and the stun is enough that you could take him kind of like Lissandra and put him in the top lane. Because if he can siege at level 11 is probably when he can really siege from top lane, but he can definitely help out at, blue buff and whatnot. That
Right, he can contribute.
he could potentially contribute red side. Am I thinking red side? Yeah, red side top lane. And I'm not saying take him there all the time, but I think that's just another one of those mages that could potentially see a resurgence. Because as part of these patch notes, and what we should talk about as well, is that Perseverance, the tier 1 HP regen, got nerfed.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up because it's a
Nerfed in half, yeah.
That's a huge thing too.
Do you think double AP could make a resurgence because of that, since we were just talking about that effectively? Or like
I think we could
burst
see...
AP top laner, like traditional mage top lane, and then an assassin in the mid, whether it's Zed or
Right.
LeBlanc or something.
I think the only problem you might run into with that, and it depends on what top lane. Like, I think Lissandra could potentially make a resurgence in the top lane against specific matchups. Not like Mundo, unless you're going to do lots of roaming and you're trying to get to 6 really quickly. Because Lissandra, she was playing the top lane before because she had great escape, and
Right.
she can push out somebody like Renekton. And now she might actually be able to push out someone like Mundo, because Mundo's not going to have that extra health, that extra 1% health regen, and not going to be able to push back quite as quickly. The only mage that I can think off the top of my head, Ryze isn't going to make a comeback anytime soon because items.
His items,
No,
yeah,
they,
his
they
issues are
ruined him
different.
with the changes to the items.
We talked about Rumble last week. I think Rumble's going to start making this return, and he already
Especially
had
since he's not shooting meatballs anymore.
right.
I think Lissandra top could potentially make a return. Dom and I talked about this today. Jax and Tryndamere with the right type of team could make a return. But every time you talk about one of these mages, you have to remember there has to be some kind of engage or tank out of the jungle. So Elise and Vi come to mind right away to pair with those.
Right.
Because Vi can set up Lissandra really easily, or Lissandra can set up Vi.
Well,
and
it
vice
depends on
versa.
how you build Lissandra too, because like a lot of what people are doing right now is they'll build her kind of similar to LeBlanc and just go super assassin heavy. I mean, that's how I like to play her too.
I was just
Basically,
gonna say, like, is this actually a thing people are doing, or just you? I know you've been really into
no.
Lissandra
This
lately.
is like what I've seen. I know. There was a guy who was talking about he's like a D1 Lissandra only guy. He had a post on Reddit the other day. He was saying that that's how he plays and that there's other ways to play her, but some people will play her like kind of tanky, like they'll go like the Rod of Ages route.
Yeah, I'm
kinda
not a big
get it.
fan of that one.
I'm not either, because I don't think she does nearly enough damage when you do that, but she can engage when she does that.
Sure.
Which is, I mean, it's a pretty hard engage.
I think it depends. Obviously, depending on how the lane is going, what you need.
Right.
I was gonna. Anytime I played her, it was Chalice into what item,
Athene's?
what items makes you fucking invincible?
Zonya.
Zonia's?
Zonya's, thank you. I don't know why I just blanked on Zonya's hourglass. But it was that. But that's because I ended up being the engage in the team. I
Right.
ended up being the secondary engage, where you go in, you ult
You ult
yourself,
somebody or
you
yourself. Yep.
and then you automatically Zonya's when you're about to die, and you're alive for 8 to 10 seconds extra that you shouldn't be.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and that's entirely true, but it also ends up being good. Like, Lissandra still dies in a lot of those situations,
Right.
as Sean can attest.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
if
but- I mean,
she
but if
gets
your team
CC'd
is
during
doing
that,
their-
she's not getting. She's dead.
If
If your
team's
team
doing
is
their
on
job,
board-
they'll clean up.
If your team's on board, Lissandra is an amazing initiator.
Sure.
Regardless, if you can just survive the top lane long enough to get decent items and somewhat stay keep
she-
up with your opponent, then you're the initiator. That's it. You go and you
Right.
initiate, you hold people down, and your team does the rest.
Yeah, she doesn't do really great against the assassin meta, does she? That's where she started falling off.
She's okay. She's okay against like people like Zed, who can engage. She just ults herself and shrugs off the damage from his ult. But I mean, like somebody like LeBlanc, if she gets silenced before she gets that claw off to escape, she's dead.
Right.
Just like anybody else, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. She never really saw a lot of play in mid lane, at least at the LCS level. She saw a lot more top lane play than she really did mid. She was, and even then, that was only in Europe, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah,
That's
she was
right.
pretty much played.
They would run Oriana, Lissandra, hit her with the ball, then, combo.
Right. So, we're talking about junglers and how they're going to pair. Skarner rework is in this patch. I think we should definitely talk about Skarner because right now the top 3 junglers are definitely Vi, Elise, and Lee Sin.
Right.
Right? Anybody else? Is there another jungler?
No, they're definitely the top 3.
Okay. And then Pantheon for Europe. Pantheon
LCS.
Europe.
Look at Pantheon, yeah.
But I think
if we're using LCS, then I think you add Wukong into that too.
You do, actually.
Yes and no. That's the fun. I think
I'm just saying if we're using LCS,
okay,
you're adding Wukong into that conversation.
But I agree that Vi, Lee Sin, and Elise are better in the jungle if you can get them.
Yeah, the thing with as we're going to talk about this, the reason I'm putting them top 3 is because there's Pantheon. There is a time frame in this game of when Pantheon is good. It's early until 35 minutes maybe, and there's this point, assuming the team is on par with you, that Pantheon starts to fall.
And it's very risky playing him, so nobody play him, please. Leave him alone. He's mine.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing.
Go ahead.
It's kind of the same thing in reverse for Wukong before he hits 6
He's
or gets a couple
Warwick.
certain items. If somebody invades him and your team doesn't respond, he's probably dead.
Sure.
He's just has his early clear is brutal.
I'm actually really coming around to the Pantheon jungle. I understand you really have to work hard to make it be successful. I feel like Pantheon junglers have to work a bit harder than Vi or Elise or something to really be successful.
Absolutely.
But once he hits 6, the level of pressure that he can apply from the jungle
to anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he has that obviously out of mid and everything or top, but from the jungle, because you don't risk losing an objective by jumping onto bot lane or mid or something, because just because you're not in a dedicated lane or anything like that. It can have such a dramatic effect on the outcome of a game because he can exert such just intense pressure.
Now, do we think
been-
that Skarner, the new Skarner rework, is going to do the same thing? Is going to exert immense pressure? Is it going to be like a Wukong where you can't duel in the jungle? I mean, I'm gonna go to my resident Skarner expert here, Sean, and tell me about this rework and what you think.
Honestly, I think with the new Skarner rework, I think he'll be better off in the jungle early. Considering most of his base stats have stayed the same for the most part, his base stats are really good, and he's already a really good duelist early. Mm-hmm. With the fact that they just added attack speed onto his Q, so they removed attack speed from his shield, which is his W, and they just made it like a stacking attack speed steroid on his Q, just like Volibear's Ferocious Bite. That just makes his early clear that much easier, as well as his trade potential if somebody does try to invade him that much better. You're still going to be able to get the W second probably, but now that you're not dependent on having the shield up for your attack speed boost, you can keep that attack speed up all the time if you can stick on somebody, so you're just going to be doing that much damage, and the longer the fight goes on, the better you basically are, so you're going to put out more damage the longer the fight's going anyway.
His E seems like the biggest change there.
It is.
As far as his ganking potential.
I don't know how that's going to work out. It's a really long cooldown on his E, and
they added 4 seconds
to
it.
Yeah. The thing right now is that if he gets on you, unless you can hard CC him off and keep him off you, he's going to stay on you like glue.
Sure.
He just slows you forever, and that was one of the things they wanted to work on. But now that they changed the slow onto his E, he gets a couple seconds slow if he lands a long range skinny skill shot on you. But it's not going to be the same thing where once you get on them, you're never getting off them.
Right.
It's going to be hey, you catch them, hopefully your teammate can get to them, but once you get to a certain point, they can get away from you, especially if they have
can they though? If you itemize between Crystal and Exoskeleton, and that's still having, and then the cooldown reduction from his passive and everything, and now the attack speed is on his Q. He'll be getting the bonus attack speed all the time.
It's still
and
14,
realistically.
It's still 14 seconds on his.
But I think
slow.
I
mean,
see
you'd have
what
to wait
Dom's
7
saying
seconds.
here, and I think I get it. But it gives a better chance for the it gives you a better chance for one early ganks,
Right.
if you can land that E, and that also gives a better chance for your mid laner to start the engage and help you out. Because if you're going for a mid laner or a top that has a stun and you land that initial slow enough to get to them, it's going to allow for that gank to happen more effectively. It's like a Vi, early Vi ganks. If Vi hits her Q, you can kill somebody. Same thing with this Gardner E, I would assume.
It's definitely a quality of life improvement for like coming into gank. However, once you're on somebody, it's going to be a little different. I think it's a better change. I've been playing him kind of a little bit lately, just for old time's sake, since they're changing him dramatically. And I played a game the other day, and I ulted somebody, and they just flashed out of it. As he said, it's like, feel my sting or whatever, and I was pissed off, and I didn't play him since. But I won't have to worry about that after tomorrow.
Dom, I heard you talking about your friend. Do you remember
Oh,
what you were gonna say?
he's super into Skarner. He's got kind of a weird AP build that's been really, really successful for him. I've seen, like, you see it.
Is he doing like Stinger Lichbane? Or
No, it's like Rod of Ages.
Rod of Ages. He basically just gets builds tanky, but still builds.
Excuse me.
You look at the build and you think, what the hell is this Skarner doing?
Right.
And then you can't kill him and you don't understand why.
It makes a lot of sense though, because his AP ratios on his shield were pretty good. So
They're
like if
getting
you
better.
Yeah, if you build the AP on him, you can effectively, as long as you're auto attacking something, get just huge shields like every 4 or 5 seconds.
So if we're talking about AP ratios, could we see Skarner out of the top lane now? Do you think he could duel any of the Shyvana, Renekton, Mundo?
Well, if anything, it makes him kind of better in the
Trundle
top
Olaf.
lane. Just now, if somebody is coming to gank and they maybe don't have a hard CC, if you get that slow off, it enables the gank anyway.
Sure.
I don't know. And
Actually,
this
that's a really good point. He's always been a feared duelist. Like that's all you didn't want to run into Skarner.
No, he'd fuck you up.
That's what everybody has said about him. Like since he got his big rework, not rework, but his big adjustments after his release. You know,
Right.
like you didn't want to run into Skarner in your jungle or his own jungle. You know, you
Especially,
didn't want to run into him.
A Skarner
And-
with items is terrifying to run into because he's going to kill you. There's barely anything you can do about it. I think this will actually make him a better top laner.
I mean, I guess the big concern is like it's not a case where you are just starting a fight in top lane. Like if you run into an opposing jungle or jungler, like you're just gonna go for them and they have to run for you or you know decide maybe they can fight you. But in top lane, because there's so much ebb and flow, you know, it's not like everything is. It's not a head-on engage. You know,
Right.
for the entire laning phase, it's very few of those.
the issue
I
though
guess
is if you get enough.
deal with the harass.
If you also get in a fight around minions and you're spamming your Q, you're also just actively shoving the lane against you anyway.
Isn't Renekton the same way though?
Yeah,
I mean,
not,
There are a
not
lot of top
necessarily.
laners that push pretty hard.
I mean,
these days.
Shyvana, Renekton, Mundo. I guess you can't really say Trundle. Jax to an extent because of his E. I mean, all these people have ways. You just learn to work around it and how to harass. Yeah, even Nasus, exactly, with his E. You learn to work around it. You should know this, Sean. You learn to deal with the AoE because, you know, if I'm going to go up as... Okay, here's a good one. Darius, for example. Darius is a giant duelist, and his major point of contention is his Q. Right. And you learn to Q when there's not minions around. Because if you do, you start pushing the lane.
Right.
Well, here's a question. I'm sorry. I noticed in the rework they upped the ability power ratio on his exoskeleton, his W shield. Are you going to build ability power? What are they trying to do there?
I mean, he does.
See,
he has
this is
hybrid.
why I wonder if he's going to be top lane now, because he has this
Right.
0.8 AP ratio in W. Why couldn't he just max his W first or put 2 or 3 levels into it and build some AP like Rod of Ages on the top lane? You can't push him out.
Like Scion, you mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Scion type thing.
like Scion that'll stay tankier throughout the entire course of the game.
Right.
But
It
that
isn't-
actually could work. I mean, it's interesting because he's a character you could either build like Bruiser AP or Bruiser AD. And if he's getting a ton of money out of top lane too, we could see some really interesting Skarner builds. But I don't know. He's just a really malleable champion build wise. So there's a lot of
That's good to have. Like you can,
Yeah.
I mean, you can really build him full tank, and it's fine
Right. And he's going to make it in.
because he gets so much effective HP from that shield,
Right.
And all the resistances and shit you're getting are just gonna make him so much harder to kill. And like we've all seen it. we've all run into Skarners. It was just like, God damn, that fucking champion, I cannot kill him, and it's like it just drives you crazy.
It's
Well,
just-
now-
it's-
Like to me, his passive is still just frightening.
His passive's so good. My fear is if he does have like a big resurgence in the top lane and people start playing him a lot and he starts doing extremely well, they might nerf one of his abilities just like they did his E.
Everything's balanced
time?
around his passive, so they're gonna they would probably tone down the shield because it's up to 300 now. They
Right.
won't touch the passive.
They better not. I love that passive.
Like, it's annoying, but he needs to have the passive. The shield is big. You
Yeah.
know, it maxes out at 300 health, and then 80% of your AP also turns into shield. So that's.
If you have
I mean,
AP.
like the 14-second cooldown
Right.
doesn't even matter because if you get a Gnasher's Tooth or a Wit's End or whatever other attack speed item you want, like that
Trinity
shield's always
Force,
going to be up.
Whatever. Yeah.
They're going to melt through it, and then it's going to be back up.
That's why I
So
think
it's
like
Riven.
Rod of Age's Stinger type of thing would be good out of the top lane with a Sheen somewhere mixed in there. If you get an early kill,
Yeah,
definitely
I
pick
mean,
a
like
Sheen.
his kit now just screams to me Iceborne Gauntlet. Like,
Yeah, that,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
I completely agree with that. With the loss of the slow on
Oh,
his
yeah,
Q,
hit him with
it's
the E.
just giving him his old Q passive back from the auto attacks.
and not that he needs the cooldown reduction, but he's not going to be sad to have it. And armor and that, like just that slow and the extra.
You're gonna have like a
Is
35-second.
W,
You know what, I don't-
Is W?
I
a
can't-
Sorry, just like
I was going to say, I can't see myself not building a Stinger on Skarner. I mean, come on. He's got
damn
a
it.
Stinger.
So is W the cooldown? Is that a flat 16 seconds now? Even if you level up W, is that a flat 16 seconds?
Yeah, but it was a flat 18 seconds before.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. So is it a flat
14
where it
now, right?
can't be reduced by cooldown reduction, or is it a flat?
No, it can be reduced by CDR.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not
I mean,
like
it's like
Yasuo.
not
currently you
static.
can reduce it with CDR too. You can get it to about 12 seconds.
You just don't need to because attack
Right.
speed is better CDR for him.
Right.
Yep.
Well, I'm interested to see how Skarner comes into play. I don't know if we're going to see like immediate pro play with him, but I can
I'll be
definitely
playing him
see-
immediately.
Well, I know you will be. I can definitely
Play the
see him
shit out of
coming
him.
into a team comp where you put something crazy top. Mundo got a nerf. I still think he's going to be pretty decent because of perseverance. But like,
it's a.
I mean,
cares?
right, but a lot of those champions that we're getting, honestly, I haven't run Perseverance on anybody but Mundo and maybe Trundle recently, and Nasus.
Garen.
I don't even fucking play Garen.
Right, but even if you weren't, other people were, and it was
Right.
what was making the top laners that are popular. So
Garen was
as popular as
ridiculous.
they-
Right.
With his
Well, I'm
passive,
just
you go down to no life and boom, you're up immediately. It's just disgusting.
I mean, we touched on it in chat earlier today and everything, but the reality is the guy who benefits from the Perseverance change more than anybody else is Renekton.
yeah,
Right.
I
absolutely.
mean, just like because all the people that were suddenly handling Renekton pretty well now
Don't
just
have
got worse by virtue of that mastery change. He goes, I mean, what is he back to ban status? Do you think? Like you were right before the season 4 patch, you were saying just ban Renekton because nobody.
Right.
He
He's
has
a pain
no
in the
hard
ass to deal
counter.
with.
He has like his soft counters are pretty soft.
he might actually be back to ban status because with the way the game is playing right now, you could build Renekton straight damage early into a Tiamat and then go tanky because
Yep.
he gets enough free life off his ultimate that he doesn't die in team fights. So he might be back to ban. I still thought he was ban status before this, like Leona
I didn't think he was ban status.
Renekton.
I never
He's
think
still
ban
great right
status.
now.
I wouldn't ban him because there's other bans out there that are better. Casted and Red Side is always a ban. There's Vi, Lee Sid to an extent. I can keep going on and on. Leona 100% needs to be picked or banned in my opinion. But
To me, Renekton is always one of those champions. It's like if you don't lose the game because he's on the other team. You lose because you played poorly against Renekton, and that's on you.
Yep.
And that's always my attitude about him. If I run into a Renekton that's really fed and I die, I'm like, oh shit, somebody else fucked up because I sure wasn't dealing with Renekton.
yeah,
But,
oh yeah,
Same with Shyvana, though.
well,
I
she
see the
can
same
punish.
thing with
She
Shyvana.
can punish. Like she used to be able to punish the jungler, the enemy jungle, just
But
by
if she
going in there and
snowballs top
stealing all
lane.
shit. Yeah, but Renekton doesn't steal it or doesn't counter jungle the same way Shyvana
not at
does.
all.
Just watching that match with Dyra Shyvana, I'm shaking my head. I'm like, there's nobody who can handle her.
The biggest
Period.
Shyvana
I
there ever
think what
was.
Dyrus said it after the fact. I don't remember if it was an interview or what it was. He said he
was an
didn't
interview.
play well. The team played well and allowed him to.
The team played well, and he soaked up some
No,
kills.
he
with
said He said because it's not because he plays well, it's because his lane opponent made mistakes. And he said he took 2 tower hits, and then from there,
Well, see, this
there
is
was
the
no
funny
stopping
thing. Last
it.
night,
Yeah, but I'm sure Soaz would say the same thing about like his average games. Like, it's not that I'm playing better or worse than the opponent. Or it's not that I'm playing well. It's that I'm just waiting for them to screw up.
you know, it's funny that you talk about that. We're talking about this, even though it doesn't really have to do with patch 4.2. Last night we had a discussion. You could actually go hear it. It's still on the Trinity or on the T-Force podcast highlights, and we were talking about what champions I can play top lane and what this. And I said, I don't care if this guy is amazing at Lee Sin and he's going to keep pushing me to tower. He's not going to kill me because I can play at the same level or just as well as this guy can, and I can play safe. But if the dude fucks up and comes under tower, say I'm Warwick and the dude comes at me under tower, I'm going to ult him and he's going to die because he made a mistake. So I think there is. I'm not saying I'm diamond level or challenger level or anything. I'm just saying that there definitely is a level in this game where when someone makes a mistake, you learn to punish it and you capitalize on it.
Oh,
and there are some champions that can definitely.
Imagine if you screw up.
Oh, you're
under
fucked.
Skarner's tower.
Oh yeah,
you're done.
I don't know. Oh, if you screw up under Skarner's tower,
Yeah, you're dead.
Yeah. If Skarner's playing,
Sorry, I thought you were
passively,
saying
and
the other
then
way.
you
I'm like,
make one mistake.
Skarner, he's got like it kind of seems like he's got decent wave clear. At the end of the
He
day,
does have good wave. I mean, he
So-
have decent wave clear now.
well let's are we?
Kale is the only other noteworthy patch item
I was going to
in
talk
my.
about Kale and Ash actually. I think Ash is.
I don't know. Ash
passive.
is like.
Ash is a mention.
I think Ash is
but
a mention. I don't because of the top. Like
Kale's the
there-
bigger one to discuss.
There's not like a holy trinity in bot lane like there was in season 2, but I think Ash could see like a small, slight resurgence with this, with the correct pick and bans, because this does make her. This does allow her to come back when she's down early, which has always been her problem because she has no escape. This passive change allows her to come back.
I was about to say,
Start
could they
coin
just?
E on Ash.
Yeah, you could just start E and then have ridiculous farm.
You won't start E on Ash. You'll put it's their 1 point wonder.
Right, you'll put E
Later
level
on.
2 if you don't worry about like crazy ganks or anything. 'Cause
Yeah.
Q doesn't really do much for you, or early. But I just
Well,
want to
you
mention
need
her.
one rank of Q to get the slow on volley though. Don't you?
No,
No.
volley slows.
Volley,
Oh.
volley just shoots. Like that's why I'm saying, honestly, you're probably not going to get all in at level 1 playing Ash. So I mean, you could start E, just soak up an extra like 20 gold or whatever with the passive.
Yeah, I think.
And then,
I
uh,
think you
It
could.
says it applies the current rank of Frost Shot regardless of whether it is toggled or not. But if you don't have Frost Shot, does it apply the slow?
Now you're screwed with me because I always thought it applied to slow no matter what.
I
thought
always
so
thought
too.
it
It
didn't
shows how much
unless
Ash
you
I
had
played.
one rank unless you had one rank of Frost Shot.
Well, you just backed us into a corner, Dob, because I can't answer that question. I don't know.
I am not good at this game.
Well,
I think Dom's right.
no, I think you have to take volley level 1 though, because if you want to push
Yeah.
that level 2, if you want to get to level 2, you have to get to level 2
Before
when
them,
they get to
right.
level 2. Before them, you have to take volley.
If you don't
Oh, wait.
take volley at level 1,
Hold
you
on a
lose a
second.
ton of her early burst. Because
Hold on, Dom's right to an extent. It applies Frost Shot slow effect, regardless if you have it or not. But if you have a higher level of Frost Shot, it slows more.
right.
I
but
had-
the question
honestly,
is, if you
I've
don't have a
never
rank
You
of
don't have
Frost
it at
Shot,
all.
it's
It'll
whether or not it's
still-
toggled.
It applies it. It applies,
Applies it whether or not
regardless
it's
of whether you have it.
toggled. But if you don't have
No,
a
whether or
rank
not
of
you
it, you
have it.
technically don't have the. No,
I'm
it's whether or
trying
not
this
it's
out
toggled.
right now.
The argument here is if you're level 1, does
All right.
it slow? Because you
I'm just
don't
going
have
by reading
Q.
it because I haven't played her much. So
I think it still slows at level 1, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'd have to go test
I thought
it.
it didn't. I thought I didn't.
But anyway, do you think this change? You said you might see a mild resurgence in Ash because of the change.
Mild.
on her
I'm
E?
talking very mild. I'm talking like a Mordekaiser level pick in the LCS because of this change.
Okay, that's pretty damn mild.
Yeah, well, because she's not going to be able to duel Lucian. She still is bad against Sivir because Sivir can push her harder, and Ashe still has mana issues. And who's the last one? Jinx. Jinx automatically just does more damage than Ashe does. You use Ashe for the utility, and that's why C9 ran her, was the utility of the ultimate. She wasn't there to carry. Everybody else was there to carry, but that's that's when top lane was the carry lane. That's when we saw, SKT1 running Jax out of the top lane for 3 games at Worlds. So I think there could be a mild resurgence with this change, but not.
I don't think there'll be a
everyone's not gonna
resurgence until Jinx gets some attention.
start Sure,
But that's me.
sure.
Because
Well,
I don't think Lucian's really a big deal right now. He's there've
He's
just been
alright.
enough. There've been enough changes, sort of both to him and outside of him, that have toned him down to the point where he's a lane bully, but his fall off as the game goes on becomes noticeable, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and Jinx, you mentioned Jinx. Jinx is one where I don't ban her, and then I play against her, and she destroys my team. Then I ban
And you
her.
regret ever
until I
not
forget
banning.
again. Exactly. Because
Well, what about Kale? Do you regret playing against the Kale? Is the type the same way for you?
Well, to a degree, I mean,
you're never
lose
gonna
to any
ban
champion. Any one champion kicks your ass, and you regret not banning it. But
well, let's talk about the new Kale then. The noteworthy change here being that her Q now has a 0.65 AP ratio rather than a 1.0 or 0.6 AP ratio rather than a 1.0 ratio.
Oh yeah, that just means you won't be maxing Q like before, because right now it's just amazing,
Sure.
So
yeah, with 1.0. So with these changes, not considering W in here, which just had a slight AP ratio, and it scales per 100 ability power, so it has a slight
faster.
buff with it. I think are we going to see more people maxing E and going top lane and pushing out like Mundo, because you're going to push him back hard and you're going to be able to.
Well, like she did in season 2.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm leaving that
tough
on
to
the
say.
table.
I mean, like honestly, she becomes more compelling as a support to me now than anything else.
Just because of that heal change.
The heal change and also no mana cost on her ult.
Okay.
That's actually kind of big.
And that's not. I mean, as the game went on, it wasn't a big deal. But at level 6, when all of a sudden her ult goes from 100 mana to 0, that's huge for Kale. You're no longer worrying about managing your mana there, so you can save your.
Right. You don't have to make
carry.
a decision. Do I heal or do I ult?
Yeah.
I'll do both.
Yeah. Right.
I'll ult you then heal you.
So how would you, as the support player, how are you going to build Kale? Is it going to be the same way? It's going to be like Doran's Shield to start?
Well, I mean, I never do that. I never build Doran's Shield because I prefer more vision early on. But most people probably will build Doran's Shield. I guess every now and then you see people build Doran's Ring instead of the shield on someone like Annie. But, I mean, you can still do that. Realistically, you're still going to want Talisman of Ascension because it has all that cooldown reduction on it. 20% CDR is just an insane amount, regardless of everything else that it's doing for her. It's just the cooldown reduction on that item is too good. And then from there, it's like she's really malleable. You can go kind of like the tanky aura style Kale, since she's relatively, for a bunch of range spells, she's relatively short range as far as what she actually does. So you could get something like Abyssal Scepter and Frozen Heart if you want it, or Aegis or whatever. You can go more of an AP build. You could really go an attack speed type build and just shred all of the resistances of your opponents so that your team can really do work. So I like her in that regard because you can do a lot of different things. I'm not saying Kale is the new pick always support because she's going to win that lane, but
It's the new Annie.
she lets you do some interesting things that Annie certainly doesn't let you do.
I forgot about Kale. So last night I played Olaf in the top lane, actually, and I'm on the train now, Chira. Not because of last night, but because whenever somebody tells me something, it honestly takes me a week, and then it just hits me, and I go, wait, he's totally right. Like I didn't try.
Good.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry to
happens.
interrupt
I'm
you,
familiar
but
with that.
I just tested and Dom is on 100% correct. You need
Yep,
a
I
rank
did
of rush shot for Volley
So
Double.
it does not slow.
Yep.
I did not
The
know
champion.
Well done, Dom.
It's funny how I go through this game that someone will tell me something, and sometimes I'll argue, against it. I'm like, no, this won't work. But there's definitely been times like with this Olaf thing. I'm like, yeah, Olaf's great, Chira. We could do E because if you want this, that we've talked about it, right? Like I never said anything bad about it, and it finally clicked the other day. I went, Korea's got it right. Olaf beats Renekton. Olaf beats Mundo. Olaf beats fucking everybody.
I've been telling you this for like a month and a half.
It didn't click. It honestly didn't click the other day.
It's the thing, and the nice thing is people don't remember how to fight against him in the top lane right now too. So like people who will run in like Renekton and try to do their little like dash in, QW, trade, dash out kind of thing. If you E them like when they come in, that just canceled out all the benefit they got out of that trade as well. So like, I mean, if he comes in and does that 4 times when you have a 3rd rank in your reckless swing, he's gonna be at like a quarter health and you can just dive him. But he's really really good right now.
I've heard all the arguments about him. I tweeted today. I said, I said top lane needs more Olaf. That's all I said.
Yeah.
And I had a couple people that are like, well, he's really good out of the jungle right now. And I said, yeah, but he stops all of the top laners right now. He stops all of the top laners in their tracks.
I got back up the gold 1 in like a week.
Yeah. Well, the reason I bring him up is because last time we had a Kale and we were diving a turret at one point, and they're like, "Just keep going, keep going." I completely forgot about the Kale, and I started to back out as I was taking turret shots, and I was like, "Wait, I'm not taking damage anymore." And that's why I've always liked Kale. It's because of silly things like that. Like if you go too deep, she can. We talked about.
She has a forgiveness button.
We talked about the lack of forgiveness of some teams, and she has a forgiveness button.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I actually played a decent amount of support Kale in Season 2 because at the time Starks had attack speed on it instead of the Zeke's that has attack damage, and like that was the perfect item to me. It was a great aura for my my AD champions. It was because it was armor pen and lifesteal. That's exactly what you want. And then it had cooldown reduction and attack speed for Kale herself, so that meant you were just getting as much of that resistance shred going on as you could possibly get. And that's like, it's not one of it's like Urgot. It's a lot of hidden power on her that people kind of overlook because they're focusing on her burst or intervention.
Right. Tinfoil hat time. I think that Riot is nerfing every champion so they can make Yasuo secretly good.
Oh, God damn it.
Is that a segue into discussing his changes in this patch?
How did you guess? Wow, you were so good at this. I'm going to make a tinfoil hat one of these days, and I'm actually going to wear it.
Please just put it on like randomly throughout the show.
Yes, appreciate
that. Just start out wearing it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Because
Welcome, guys, to the Tinfoil Hat Podcast.
Yeah, they've nerfed Kale. I actually had a whole list earlier of champions they've slowly started nerfing, and then they brought Yasuo out.
And Kassadin's still banned all the time.
Yeah, right. And Kassadin's still banned.
Yeah, Yasuo, they pretty much just nerfed the generation of his flow. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
So he's got less flow.
He lost 5% damage on E at max rank.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, because every time you jumped through a minion or any person or whatever, you gained a stack on Sweeping Blade, up to 20%.
No, it's only
I didn't see any. Because of the flow.
Yeah,
part of it. Yeah, part of it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was thinking damage. Passively grants flow. So you're right. Yeah, it was
It's
all
just
flow.
the flow. Yeah, and then they just fixed a bug with his ultimate. And the range indicator, I'm curious, is that visible only to him?
Yeah.
Okay, because then that would be just like whoa, okay, he has it up. I'm getting to juke mode here, So
Juke mode when it's at 1200 Tmos or 650 Tmos.
Well, I kind of tried to notice when he gets the little swirly around him and listen for that sound effect, and then I'm like, oh, I'm in juke mode. All right, when's he gonna do it? So I gotta dodge this. So he can't ult me. But if they showed a range indicator, that would be easy.
Helpful.
I really don't see him that often right now. I kind of think the skill cap on him is
too high.
He's banned a lot. Yeah. I've had some really good Yasuos in some games, and
when you get Yasuo, it's like, okay. This guy
the other
probably
team
knows
fucked
what's
up and not banning.
So why haven't we talked about Ziggs yet? Because I think this reduction, this giant reduction on an explosive minefield, really hurt.
Back to where it was. Well, yeah, but they didn't remember they were toying with the idea of reducing the time that the minefield is out on the field.
I would.
And that needs it. It needs it still.
Much rather want that. It lasts. It lasts forever.
It lasts like 12 seconds.
It's a zone. You're doing dragon. You just put it up there and in the bush where they can come in and don't worry about it. We're doing baron. Yeah, let me throw it down there below the pit, and I'm good to go. I'll do it when we start baron, and it won't go away until somebody steps on it.
Exactly.
But it affects his wave clear, which is his main strength, is clearing those waves. So.
Well, and also the early level base damage and ability power ratio on Q got nerfed.
On his short fuse, not Q, his
passive. Sorry,
short fuse.
Yeah.
Which is big because that's a big part of his harass. You get the short fuse, you right click on the enemy, and you back out to duck the minion aggro.
But I don't know. I guess I'm okay with these nerfs because like it was too much free damage he was getting.
Sure.
I'm okay with it because I think this is going to lurk him back in the shadows a little bit, and then I can use him a little bit more. So I don't see him as a ban anymore. I think people are going to see these nerfs and go, oh, I'm not playing Ziggs anymore.
I haven't seen too many Ziggs recently. I mean, I do ban him quite a bit, but I ban him just because I don't want to deal with the mid lane. More likely right now when you pick Ziggs, mid lane is lost on the virtue that the tower is going to go down before yours. You may not die, but mid lane's going to get pushed back on you.
I don't like it because when you're winning, if the enemy has a Ziggs, they can prolong the game.
Yeah.
Keep clearing and prevent you from pushing. And man,
He's still
Ziggs,
the
why did I
winningest
ban him?
champion in the game. So
He beat Wukong out.
Yep.
Is Wukong second now?
Nope. Ziggs, Mumu, Wukong, Kale, Fiddlesticks.
Okay, I'm curious to see how Kale drops in the next 3 weeks with these changes.
I mean, Ziggs is also at he's at a 23% ban rate.
Can I ask, besides Cassidy, who is the second highest banned right now?
Yasuo is second highest ban.
Third?
Elise.
Really? And is
That's
Vi
impressive.
below that?
Top 5. It's Cassidy, Yasuo, Elise, Vi, Kha'Zix.
okay, Kazakhs.
And that's not too surprising to me.
Is Vi not up in the top 5?
Top
said
six-
Vi.
She is.
Oh, you said Vi. I guess
said
you
Vi.
missed it because her name is 2 letters.
Gragas is number 6. Then Mundo, Ziggs, Kale, Thresh.
I just hate playing against Gragas.
I'm surprised Thresh is higher than
Me
Annie.
too.
I hate that guy.
I'm not surprised, just
me.
because of the success we've seen with Thresh prolonged. Annie had a little resurgence at the beginning of the preseason, but Thresh, he's consistently
He's a monster.
he's annoying as hell to play against.
Thresh,
Regardless.
the Thresh nerf from 475 to 450 was needed because
Yes,
he
I
had too
agree.
much free range and too
He
much
hit
free
hard.
damage with E.
Oh yeah, yep.
You do flay first, you walk into the lane, you have 150, 200% or whatever it was.
I would
AD.
honestly be okay with them taking him down to something like 300 just to make him this weird kind of mid-range champion because they don't have a lot of those, and I think that could be interesting. But he would probably have to get a lot of power elsewhere in his kit, and he already has too much power elsewhere in his kit, so...
Right.
Yeah, so much CC. I'm kind of with you, Dom, on just touching back on Kale, seeing her a little bit more in the support role. I think that's where
I mean,
would play personally.
truthfully, I think it's interesting because she is... This nerf kind of puts her in a position where she could go top, mid, or support reasonably and succeed in any one of those roles, which makes her especially on a ranked 5s team, if everybody knows kind of how to use her and everything, yeah, then it's an obvious ban. But if you're just doing solo queue or online queue your queue ranks and not a tournament, a ranged team's 5. That's the term. All of a sudden you can pick Kale first, and you haven't hurt your team at all because you can easily build a comp around her, but you don't leave yourself open to be counterpicked as easily.
I see what you're saying.
And I like champions like that can play kind of multiple roles. They're few and far between.
See, that's why I like
Well,
Morgana as well for
Yeah.
support. So she falls in that same exact category.
I mean, I don't like picking Morgana first because you can get into some really shitty matchups, and even then, it's like the early game can be a pain in the ass. But I like her melee ability, as we were just speaking.
Right. I think the last change we need to discuss here real quickly is that the I find this funny because the LCS casters were talking about the turret changes prior to this, and they kept saying, "Oh, it's after 8 minutes. The top lane turret armor buff has fallen off, and it's been permanent since 4.1." And they still were calling it this last week that it was falling off. So unless there's some kind of weird tournament realm patch that we didn't have, it's just now this week in 4.2 after 8 minutes the top lane reduction falls off.
I don't really notice it, to be honest.
I notice it. It's huge. It is big. You notice it in 2v1s. You really
I don't
notice it
notice
in
it at
2v1s.
all.
I see fairly even, 2v1s, obviously. I see fairly even top lanes where
See, well,
it doesn't really make a difference.
if it was down, I would have my turret 3 minutes sooner than I normally would. Like if I was winning the lane. Because you notice it when you play top lane all the time and you're used to being, there's points where someone will teleport away, so you're whacking on the turret, and you only get the turret down to half life rather than dead or 3/4
Killing
life.
it, yeah.
Yeah. And that you only learn that if you're playing top lane all the time and you understand how much damage you were doing before and after, obviously.
Hell, I mean, there's sometimes you can have your jungler up there, and you can
And it doesn't feel like
3
you're hurting
waves will
it.
go by, and you'll get it to a 4th health, and be like, man, that thing should be dead.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Yeah, with 3 waves went by and it doesn't die, there's something seriously wrong
Yeah.
with the way that's set up. But I just wanted to point that out. It is now first 8 minutes. Before it's permanent, now it's the first 8 minutes. So we'll see how pros adapt around that.
Yeah.
I don't think it changed. It really didn't seem like the change did that much, at least in North America. So I'm not.
No, it did it big because North America was the big two. Everyone 2v1 before that change. It was 2v1
We still
all the time.
I don't know. I still felt like we kept seeing those, and turrets were still falling pretty quickly. Like they just.
I don't think I want to go back and look, but I'm gonna say right now we haven't
I'm
seen
not
as many
gonna go
2v1s.
back and look 'cause that's a lot of work.
Well, it is a lot of work. Like if I was gonna go back and look, and I really wanted to argue this, I would go back and say that
If I was gonna do it, damn it,
if I
I'd
was
do
going
it.
to do it, that we have seen way less 2v1s in the last 3 weeks than we have prior to this patch. Because before this patch, there was 2v1s every single time. It's 2v1 somewhere. And that's how Season 3 was as well. Anyway. Anyone else have anything else to add to the podcast?
Sad the Doran's shield nerfs are not on this patch, but
I
whatever.
am not sad yet. Well, I was sad when the 10 potion start got nerfed. I love that. But I was like one of the
I didn't care
like
about
I was
that.
like the 2% or whatever, the small little people that love that.
Wait, I had a question here for Chira. Maokai's ultimate. They're saying they fixed a bug where the damage stored was lower than intended. Now it's 25%.
It's gonna do 25% more. That's
like consistently,
that's awesome.
or
Top
only when
lane
the bug
Maokai.
happened?
Yeah, top lane Maokai,
That
bringing it
seems
back.
pretty
Maokai.
significant.
Support
That's-
25%.
Support Maokai, yes.
That's a decent, like, I mean, that's a chunk of damage because if that thing storing up that much damage, especially level 1, you get a decent gauge off, you can pop it for like 400 damage probably. But I mean, that's a decent, that's a decent chunk.
bigger chunk than any other supports would do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that just it gives him a little better zoning potential.
It's not. I mean, I don't know. It's not like it stores the damage faster. It's just got a
Right.
higher cap.
Right. Well, no, the way it's been working is when you pop it, it has been doing 25% less than it's supposed to.
Oh, okay.
So
Bonus
like,
damage stored.
yeah. Now, I mean, basically, he's
Well, but
getting
that's
just a
still-
25% bonus to his ult's damage.
That's huge. 25%.
That's a big
is
chunk.
giant.
Looking at
not
the
a-
numbers, pretty huge, but it didn't really do that much damage though. That's only the
No.
percent stored.
You haven't
so.
played with top lane AP Maokai then, motherfucker.
I don't know what you're talking about. AD Bruiser all day.
I love Maokai and
Oops.
arrows because my ultimate, you go pop, and people are like, what the f-?
They explode.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Maokai is one of my favorite arrow champions next to Thresh. So, all right, guys, thanks for listening to Trinity Force Podcast. I know this seems kind of abrupt with the ending, but that was episode number 134. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/TForce Podcast. The best yet will be streaming this week from Sunday to Thursday night from like 9 o'clock, 8 to 9 o'clock until about 2 or 3 a.m. So you guys can check him out. He's a platinum level jungler, and we are definitely proud to bring him on. You guys go check out the OzLOL LOL podcast, ozlol.trinityforcepodcast.com. And then don't forget to go buy t-shirts because the first person
Yes,
that
please.
shows me on the LCS stream the t-shirt is going to get a shout out, and it's going to be shown on the stream, and I'm going to bring this guy on the podcast
Oh, nice.
for like 5 minutes
shit.
just so he
That's
can go,
cool.
yeah, then I'm going to hang up on him. but you'll be on. You'll be the first fan
Nice.
about the podcast that wasn't a fan episode. Called it right now. Dom is like, God damn it, Adam.
Whatever.
So, thanks guys for listening.
It's gonna be
134.
an EU show that you like don't even see. That's what's gonna. That's where it's gonna happen.
You have to provide proof of a YouTube video of somehow. You have to clip it. So, guys, if stick around here, we're either going to be doing ranked 5s if the team can stay, or we will be doing some kind of fan games, and that will not be streamed if we do fan games. So stick around. Join channel T-Force in NA. Otherwise, guys, check us out on Wednesday when we release the new podcast. That was episode 134. See you.
All right.